Hi, welcome to Relish Books. Today I'm just doing a quick what I'm reading update. So my most current big read, the main thing I'm focusing on right now is Look Homeward Angel by Thomas Wolfe. I've meant to read this for years. It's one of the top ones on my book list for 2024. I'm just a few chapters in. It is very interesting. I had read just the very beginning a couple of times in the past. I'm just picking it up at libraries and stuff, so I knew a little bit of what to expect. I knew that it was pretty wild. It's definitely interesting. All kinds of crazy stuff happening. You really have no idea what stuff the next page is going to bring. So it's pretty wild, pretty kind of violent and crazy here at the beginning. The main character comes from just a crazy family. The father is something else, abusive, just but a really odd character. I liked kind of giving his whole backstory and beginning kind of going back a couple of generations before he introduces the main character, to kind of give you background, to give you context for, I think, the odd personality that is going to be born out of this. So I've only read the first few chapters. I really don't know obviously what I'm going to think of the book as a whole at all yet. The writing's really good, especially in the first couple chapters. You have to stay on top of it to get a feel for what it's saying, and even then sometimes I was kind of missing what exactly he was saying, but it's interesting, it's engaging, it really keeps you guessing for what's coming next. So yeah, we'll see how that one progresses, just how it goes. Like I said, I just started it. And then I've been reading a couple of Udora Welty's short stories. I hadn't read anything of hers before, I don't think. I've always heard about her. These are really interesting. I like reading short stories once in a while. They're really fun. They're kind of just examples. I feel like with these in particular, they're really just examples of pieces of writing more than anything else. These stories are so abrupt and they don't go anywhere. You get basically a scene without context. You're thrown into the middle of some people's lives without knowing anything about them. You get a couple very what's the word? Vague, that's not quite the word I'm looking for, but you get a couple of impressions from their life, and then the story's over. It keeps you guessing. It's frustrating because it's over just as you're getting interested. You feel like it's always over right before you get over before you get to the punchline. So they're frustrating, but she's an amazing writer, very clever. Her dialogue's very smart. Not really 100% sure what I think about these. They're fun to read. They're really great for if you are a writer, looking for just examples of dialogue, of setting, of all kinds of things like that. But they are fairly pointless, other than just to appreciate good writing, because they don't really leave you with anything. You don't actually know anything about what's going on. And they might not all be like that. I've only read the first few. But really good writing, and definitely interesting if you're into that kind of thing. Then I just started this. A couple of these books are from the books I got at the used bookstore that I did a video about a while ago. Just read the introduction. Introductions are sometimes the best part of collections like this. If you have a poetry collection and it's collected by somebody, obviously they aren't the writer of the book. Garrison Keillor doesn't even write poetry anymore. But his introductions are really, really good for the most part. I think his introduction in Good Poems was a lot better than the one This is Good Poems for Hard Times. But I really enjoyed the first Good Poems volume, so I'm really excited about this one. I am still working on Crime and Punishment. I kind of just read a chapter here and there. It's I really want to read it. I'm interested in reading it. I think it's a good book to read in a lot of ways, but it's really difficult for me personally to get into. So I kind of just pick it up every now and then, read a chapter, and put it back down. I just try to read a chapter often enough that I don't forget everything that's going on. So I made some progress. This is about the writing is very tight in this edition. But it's about 500 pages, and I'm just over 100 pages. So I'm about a fifth of the way through, which is not very good. But I'm still working on it. I'm not going to give up, but it might take me all year. But I'm going to try to finish it this year because it's on my this year book list. And then this one I have not started yet, but I'm planning to read it with my husband. This is Robert Jordan's The Great Hunt. This is number 2 in the Wheel of Time series for any fantasy people out there. I just want to say a couple things about fantasy really quick. So my husband and I read the first Wheel of Time book when before we were married. Something we did together, and we were like, oh, there's this whole huge series. He's a lot more into fantasy than I am. That's kind of his genre. And he was like, well, there's this big series. We can read it together, because we were always looking for stuff to read together that our interests kind of overlapped in. So he's like, supposed to be really good, this great series. We read the first one, and I hated it. He liked it better than I did, but he still wasn't a huge fan. But he really wants to keep going, because he says that even people who love the series all agree that the first book is really poorly written, and you just have to get past that, and it gets a lot better. So I'm willing to give it another try. I really was not a fan of the first book, but there's enough setting and story and plot line to kind of go on that I could see that it would get better. I just the writing was so bad in that first book that I really don't see how he's going to improve rapidly. I could definitely see him improving a lot over the course of 14 books, but is the next book really going to be that much better? Do I really want to put my time into this? But I think it's worth it, if we're reading it together, something we can read to, discuss. It's always fun to do that together. So yeah, going to be starting that. And about fantasy, I think unfortunately a lot of there's kind of these two sections of people. There are the classics lovers, the literary snobs, so to speak, and that's definitely more the group that I would put myself in. That's more my leaning. But a lot of the time, they really hate on all fantasy. And then there's this group of people over here who love fantasy, and when they love fantasy, they seem to just love all fantasy, and they embrace all this mediocre garbage. Just all of it under the umbrella of fantasy. They just love it all. And I really think that, as usual, the right road is somewhere in the middle. Fantasy is an amazing genre. It's there's so many great ideas in it. Obviously, just the idea of fantasy in writing is a tremendous one. You can write anything, and the kind of the traditional tropes a lot of them are really great. The quests like farmer boy to soldier to warrior. Those are all really great things. I love magic, dragons, all that kind of stuff. Has potential to be great. So I don't think fantasy, even ordinary idea fantasy, even the common tropes, it shouldn't just be discarded. There are potentials for great things out there. You just need to look hard. The unfortunate thing is that so much fantasy is under kind of this, a lot of it's kind of under the young adult young adult umbrella, which is just a horrible genre in general. And so much of it is so poorly written, so mediocre, because there's a group of people out there who will still hungrily read it, no matter how mediocre it is. So there's just so much mediocre stuff. And so I think a lot of the times people look at that, they only see all the bad. I've kind of been guilty of this, and just dismiss fantasy altogether. But I want there to be good fantasy. I would love to read good fantasy. When it's done right, it's amazing and has potential to be like the most transportive and imaginative genre that there is. I just wish better writers would get into it, because so often our really great writers love to do realistic fiction. That's like their genre of our really literary great writers. I wish some of those guys would do fantasy, because I think it'd be really amazing. But there are great fantasies. I think people a lot of the times also can scorn them, because the really great fantasies that we have, sometimes people think are overrated. Lord of the Rings obviously is high fantasy, and it's so, so good that I think it kind of transcends the fantasy genre. And I think it should be considered a literary classic, but it's still definitely a fantasy. And it's amazing, but it doesn't have to be the standard either. Just because a fantasy that you read isn't as good as Lord of the Rings doesn't mean it's no good. There can be variety. There can be different styles. Harry Potter should not be lumped in with Lord of the Rings. They are totally different. And Lord of the Rings is way better. But if you're being objective, I feel like. But they're so different that they really don't need to be compared. I also really like Harry Potter. I'm not like a fangirl of it, but the books in particular, J.K. Rowling's writing is really, really good. They're so much fun. They're not, I don't think they classify as anything like high fantasy, but they are just really, really engaging, really fun, and really good. They're really good books. Some other fantasy I have been enjoying, I've talked about in some videos. I enjoyed the first two, what are they called? Assassin's Apprentice and Royal Assassin and Assassin's Quest. The Farseer trilogy. I haven't read the last one. The first two are pretty good. They are a bit of a slower paced fantasy, but characters are really good. Setting is good. The magic system is really good. I think it's well done. So that's a good one. And yeah, I am on a quest to find more good fantasy and to give it more of a try, because I have been guilty of dismissing most of it in the past, and there is so much junk in it that it's easy to do. You gotta have standards, but it can be, I know it has the potential to be an amazing, beautiful genre. So, want to find more good stuff. I read the first Wizard of Earthsea book, which is considered high fantasy. I wouldn't mind reading the others. It was fine. I thought it was pretty dull, to be honest. Didn't love it. So, if there's any fantasy fans out there, I would love recommendations. I would like to read more in that genre. And also, I have some stuff I'm working on right now, but I feel like I'm kind of open at the moment to read whatever. I'm not not intensively working on a big series, so I would love any book suggestions that anybody might have for me to check out. So that's my reading update. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.